Right. What's up, guys? Happy weekend, happy end of the year, happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Sort of whatever your holiday or event or break of choices. I hope you appreciated this weekend. So, um, I wanted to do one last live for the year. I had sort of gotten into the flow of doing at least one a week. At least half of them were sort of messed up in one way or another, but each one of them had something endearing to them, at least from my point of view. So I wanted to do the same thing for the last week of the year, keep that consistency up, roll into 2024 on a high note, both with this event, both with the business, both with personal, or I guess that's more than a both, because a both is a two, but you sort of know where I'm going with this. As far as today's wonkiness, I am talking to you from the Brooklyn Public Library in a little office cubicle that they have. I happen to be in New York City today, and I still wanted to get it done. So a little bit of innovation, a Wi-Fi outlet, and a room that they let me use, and we're here now. It feels a little bit echoey through my earbuds, but I guess it is what it is. Hopefully, the microphone is good. Hopefully, all the audio processing that the internet gives to us will address this nicely. And hopefully, it sounds good. So, getting right into it, I sort of spent a few minutes and I sort of tried to be a little bit more prepared than I have been for some of the other episodes. Of course, every single episode did get a nice amount of attention in terms of setup and in terms of attempts and in terms of signing up for softwares that I didn't have before that particular episode. But I gave this a little bit of its own thoughtfulness in terms of reflection on what 2023 looks like, a little bit of thoughtfulness in what I expect for 2024. And I wanted to share that with you. So 2023 was sort of an interesting year on a lot of levels. I'm going to stick to mostly business because that's where most of the interesting things were. I think, thank God, in every kind of way that's good, it was a pretty level year personally. No dramatic ups, no dramatic downs, which is very often what you'd like out of a year of life. Although I did turn the big 5-0 in terms of the age category, I sort of feel the same as I did a few weeks ago. So I'm not attributing too much to that. Everything else, mostly smooth. As far as business goes, it was really an interesting year. The first thing that was different was in 2023, I traveled a lot less than I did in 2022. In 2022, the world was sort of opening up after COVID. Every event was restarting. Every event was, even if it had been going, it was the first year that a lot of people were rushing back to it, and you sort of wanted to be everywhere and do everything. I looked at my travel calendar at the end of 22. I looked at my business at the end of 2022, and I sort of said, my business grew, but not much of that business really came directly from that travel. Um, I couldn't attribute being here to this piece of business or being there to that piece of business. And all that ended up happening was I rang up tons of miles, spent lots of super tired weekends after being out and about for a week. And I said, maybe I should scale back a little bit. In 2023, I made a conscious effort to be more thoughtful about the places that I went. I think I went to about half of the events that I went to compared to the year before. And business still grew. Thank God, business is good. Business is continues to grow. Of course, never as much growth as you'd like. Or at least I've never experienced as much growth as I'd like. So some growth, we'd like more. We'll try to make more happen in 2024. So that's sort of what it looked like on the travel front. In terms of performance across my business, performance, again, thank God, was good. I invested a lot over the past 18 months in terms of upgrading my team, in terms of adding team members, in terms of trying to open up bottlenecks, namely myself. And that has paid off in client satisfaction. It has paid off in performance. It has paid off in a whole bunch of ways. 18 months ago, I lost one client because they told me something that really, like it I felt it. They basically said, Abe, we love you and performance is actually good, but when we want to have a conversation with you, we can't find you. And we sort of want to be able to speak to somebody more reliably. And I said, I can't be a large company or I can't be a established company with a good client base and only be the point of contact for everyone. So 18 months ago, I made a commitment to hiring client success managers. Now I've got a whole team of people who their position and their responsibility is to be responsive to clients. And everybody that works with me, everybody that logs into these, to these events, everybody that knows me, everybody that works with me, they have all got multiple ways to get answers to things pretty quickly. They get answers in anywhere from minutes to hours. It's not like other places where if it's not like the second Tuesday of the month at your slotted in half hour, you got nobody to speak to. No, we've got regular calls set up with clients. We have impromptu calls as clients need. We've been a lot more responsive, and that has led actively to a lot higher client success, a lot higher client satisfaction levels. I'd like to think I've been doing good work all the time. Even that client that left said, your numbers are solid. And as it turns out, the place they went afterwards did significantly worse work than we did. They left me in the account for a year. We've had discussions about restarting with them. And that performance was never the question, just communication was. And anybody that also knows me knows that I'm not great at responding to texts. When I happen to be in the middle of a conversation, I'm there and I'm present, but there's only so many hours, there's only so many cycles of attention that I've got. And that's just how I am. I can't apologize for it. I can only try to do better. But when I have specific people who are dedicated to your job is to respond to somebody, their job is to respond to somebody. So on that end, business was a lot better in terms of client satisfaction. Another place we invested was into software. There is always a tension. There is always a push and pull between doing things in an automated way and between doing things manually with human beings clicking and doing and pressing buttons. And as Amazon has become more and more and more technical, the reality is that software is needed in a bunch of places. It's always been needed. It's always been helpful. Almost as soon as Amazon made it possible to do things with outside software, people have been doing things with outside software. But as Amazon gets more sophisticated, what I'm finding out more and more is that there really isn't any all-in-one tool. There isn't any software where you connect your account and you can do all the things you need to do. There never has been, and it's even more so now. So as we've been investing in people, we've also been investing in software. Now I've got one software platform that handles internal reporting, the deep dives we do into data. I have a different software that creates dashboards for clients. And that goes along with what I was saying earlier, in which some of the people that I've given dashboard access to have really, really loved it. They've gotten views into their accounts that they never had before they did this. They can see certain groups of products, how they're performing compared to other groups. They can see how launches are going. They can see how profitability is. And they do that all without even needing my time. That dashboard does it all for them. So it's really, really nice. It's part of the services we offer to clients who need it. And it's been one of the nice offerings. So we do have a software specifically for that. We have software for alerts. Basically, lots of things happen in accounts every day, every hour, every minute, every week. Lots of things change, millions of data points, even in the most simple of accounts, conversion rates and things breaking and things taking off unexpectedly, which is a different kind of headache. If you expect to sell 10 units a day and all of a sudden you sell 60, that is actually a weird problem of its own, because once you run out of product, you are not visible on Amazon anymore, and you start to have performance that's going to be tougher and tougher to capture again when product comes back into stock. So we live a world of alerts. We set up a whole bunch of standard alerts with a lot of thoughtfulness, and of course, lots of accounts have special things about them that we customize and set up alerts for those people also. And again, we have, after looking at a bunch of software applications, a lot of software solutions, software alert options that existed within current software we used, we said, I want something dedicated for alerts. We ended up using a certain platform for it. And we did that across a bunch of pieces of the things that happen within accounts. So we added software. I don't necessarily love the idea of many pieces of software in a business. The leaner you run, the simpler things are, and the more effective you can be. That's a general business idea that I like and I lean into and I push for people I work with. But at the same time, things need to happen. And having the best tool for each thing is important. It's really as simple as that. If you want to do the best work, you need to have the best performance. You need to have the best tool doing that thing. Get it done. So software, additional software, better software, more granular software was a big theme for 2023. I'd like to think I have my stack relatively steady. There are a few places where I think software doesn't even exist yet that I'd like it to. One of the things is like custom dashboarding. As much as I have multiple pieces of software for dashboards, there is still inevitably people that want a thing that doesn't exist that's built out already. And it continues to be a challenge. We do well at it. I'd like it to be more efficient. Working on that. I have things in play. That might be a thing that we lean into, but it's probably never going to be a real thing that I yell to the world, hey, I've got the craziest customizable dashboards that you could ever want. No. Preset dashboards have existed because they give the most relevant pieces of information in most cases. And it should be what is effective enough for what most people need. So software is a piece of what 2023 looked like. It's of course going to be a piece of what 2024 looked like. Within Amazon, within the platform that I run my business on, 2023 was like super interesting. I was able to understand the system of Amazon well enough to get pretty good results for my clients, but at the same time, it was super chaotic. Amazon kept adding extra features, and for a good amount of time, it was unclear what the benefit of those features was. They would add placements. They would give us access to additional data. And when they would give us access to that additional data, the usefulness would be questionable. Of course, I don't have the exact example in front of me, but very frequently we'd look at a thing and we'd say, wow, that's interesting. Oh, I never knew this thing was happening in an account. But then when you take the next step and you say, oh, now that I know this piece of thing, what can I do with it? That would be much cloudier and it would be much harder to influence these things. So when a client is asking about it, or when even internally when we're having a discussion, very often the answer would be, what do we do with this? I'm not sure yet. Let's revisit it in a week or a month. Let's have a shower thought that leads to the intuition, or, which leads into the way to take advantage of this new feature. And a lot of features that started out at the beginning of the year still don't have clear use cases. Lots of things that Amazon has rolled out are not scalable at all. Where there'll be a technique that you can figure out from a different piece of dashboard that Amazon rolled out. It might be good for one SKU if you spend a few hours with it. It is absolutely not scalable if you have 50 or 100 SKUs. It is not scalable at volume. It is certainly not scalable with many accounts. So we leave those alone and they haven't affected performance. My results are still good. So I expect to see more of that. Hasn't been useful. Interesting, not so useful. The other thing that Amazon has done, which is they have increased fees a lot. Um, this is a weird subject. I spoke about it in a different live, and of course, I've spoken about it in different places where we discuss Amazon, and it's sort of a thing which has a bunch of layers. So the first layer is fees that are bigger suck compared to what happened earlier. If a fee for something was $1 and it turns into two, that's a 100% increase in one of your fees. That is a problem. Um, However, at the same time, there is a reality that in the world, things cost more than they did a year ago. Your gas costs more, your eggs cost more, your apparel costs more, everything costs more. So, those services to provide them and having it cost more is simply a reflection of reality. So, that's one layer to it. The second layer to that is that until now, and probably even now, those fees don't actually reflect what it would cost anybody to fill those things. So, on a per unit basis, Amazon's pick and pack fees are very frequently less than would be if you did it yourself, very frequently less than what a 3PL would charge to pick and pack a product, especially when it gets to larger size items. The fee Amazon charges to send a product to a shopper, it's almost always less than it'll be if you go to USPS or to UPS to ship a package. I sent one box this year myself, just one, and I walked into UPS and I said, "Hey, I want to ship this box to Michigan, New Jersey to Michigan, UPS ground, $13. If I would have shipped it overnight, $124. This package weighed 2 pounds. 2 pounds to Michigan, $124. It's not going to cost you on Amazon 124. Even if you get your biggest UPS discount rates according to volume, Amazon is still a fraction of that. So Amazon is still behind in charging what those fees really cost. I don't even think Amazon's discounts are as big as the rates that they're charging sellers. So as business goes on, I expect Amazon's fees to more correctly reflect what it costs to fulfill. And as it does, it's going to continue to be a pain in the butt for sellers. It's going to be something where people say, I can't afford this anymore. And one of two things is going to happen. More small sellers are going to have to drop out because their batches are simply not large enough compared to what the goods cost. Big sellers who can maneuver and understand and work with these fees to their advantage are going to get much bigger because their advantages scale up when they can work with complex situations that are expensive and complex. And it's going to be something where Amazon becomes more of a quote unquote serious platform. The days where you could start out with $500 and turn it into a side hustle that generates you $2,000 a month, it's going to be less and less frequent. There will definitely be a cottage industry of reselling things at arbitrage, but it's going to get more and more challenging. It's already challenging. Um, but it's going to get more and more challenging as Amazon continues to have pressure from regulators about the things that get sold and the quality of goods and the authenticity of goods. That just makes it harder and harder for people to sell things that they don't have a true ownership connection to, which is arbitrage. I do have a bunch of arbitrage accounts. In some cases, they do really, really well. But at the same time, I see the listing suspensions, I see the fee changes, I see the returns, I see the flags for letters of authenticity. I see all of that stuff, and I can't imagine it being a solid, steady, reliable business model where you have to deal with those challenges as part of your business model. Legal challenges to the things you sell should be rare and occasional. They should not be a thing you reliably expect to deal with at least once a month. It should be occasional. So I don't love talking about gloom and doom, but challenges are challenges. They are what they are, and I expect them to grow in that space. Um, at the same time, when we like to talk about opportunity, there is definitely lots of opportunity if you are smart and if you are sharp. One thing I see more and more as I work with more and more clients, and as I do audits of more and more accounts, is I see that there is a lot of ingenuity within the category of the best sellers on Amazon. There are so many sellers who have found a tiny little space. And in that tiny little space, they can make more than somebody selling 25x their amount. They will go and they will find a product which has a very little competition, and they will find the way to exploit that and sell 5x more than anybody else does, simply because they optimize their listing better than anyone else did. And there are people who are in categories that they are the first on Amazon for it. Believe it or not, there are still categories like that. There are brands who are finding opportunities where a brand that they want to work with is not on Amazon at all. They are able to be tough and resilient and dogged about finding the right person in the company to have a conversation with about getting onto Amazon. And they leverage that exclusive into enormous amounts of sales and results. So there's different kinds of situations where you can exploit and you can find and you can fill the gaps. I know someone, I hate to talk about individual business models simply because I don't want to out anybody, but there are people who will find a thing to sell that is not discussed. They go into a weird shop, and that weird shop has a thing they sell, and nobody is hunting it down because it's not sold in Target or Walmart or any of the other standard retail places. It's not a pair of Nike sneakers. And they find this weird item and they lean into it. They walk over to that store every week. They buy 2, 3 pieces. They go into 100 of those stores and they buy 2, 3 pieces. They make $30 a unit, and they are making mid 6 figures off of this weird thing that they buy 2, 3 pieces at a time. It's possible. I see it. I know those sellers. It's definitely unorthodox. I don't expect many people to be able to lean into this. I probably wouldn't recommend it as the way to do things, but I'm just illustrating that if you are innovative, there is space to make a lot of money, and that will always be the case. Um, One other thing that was interesting this year, and I don't think it gets a lot of attention, but it really should, is seller fulfilled Prime coming back for Amazon. So, for those of you that don't know, Prime is the service that Amazon offers, which gets products to all shoppers within 2 days, no matter where you live. Um, Shoppers on Amazon pay their fees for it. We all know about that. You pay once a year, 119 or whatever it is now at this point, or a few dollars a month, and everything you buy comes in 2 days. Um, Amazon leverages that by requiring sellers to send goods into Amazon's warehouses so they can control the flow and shipments of goods. They control distributing it to warehouses. They make sure the goods are close enough to shoppers so that it costs reasonable amounts to get it to the average shopper that buys a thing on their platform. And it's a system which essentially is the heart and soul of Amazon. Prime is Amazon. Now, there is a program which was launched a bunch of years ago and then was closed off to new entrants for a whole bunch of years, which is called Seller Fulfilled Prime. And Seller Fulfilled Prime was the idea that if a seller could get goods to a shopper as fast and as consistently as Amazon could, that they would let you actually have a Prime badge for the things that you held yourself in your own warehouses. Not a lot of sellers fit that category, and a lot of sellers would drop out because Amazon was probably tougher on those sellers than they were themselves for certain types of sales. And after a certain amount of time, Amazon closed the program to new entrants for years. This year, they reopened the program. They basically set up a situation where you can get into a trial. If the trial is something you pass, then you'll be able to, offer a selection of your products or all of your products up for sale that way. If you're in a certain product category where that fits, it's amazing. Namely, you need to have either wide distribution across the United States. You need to have a whole bunch of warehouses and distribution centers that you work with, or you need to have expensive enough products that you can afford to ship goods overnight to somebody when needed. So if you have a product that costs $300 and it's not very large and you've got your margins, it is worth it to spend on average $41 for air. Of course, you'll have your negotiated fees and all the rest of that, but it's an option and it becomes something where you don't have to worry about Amazon receiving a wrong amount of goods, Amazon losing your expensive products, about worrying about the flow of goods into Amazon for keeping goods in stock. All of that is now controlled by you, which is much, much better for businesses. You can make goods live the minute you get it, not 16 days after Amazon gets it. So that program being opened up has the potential to help a bunch of people who were able to take advantage of it, but not able to get into it. I think that is actually one of the biggest things in 2023, and not a lot of talk has happened about it. I was attending a live yesterday talking about exactly what I'm talking about now. Oh, the wrap up of 2023 and what's going to be in 2024. And a bunch of themes were discussed. These things I'm discussing now, if you are deep into the world of Amazon, nothing I'm telling you is new or novel. Maybe I'd like to think I'm framing it in a different way. I'd like to think you like hearing the tone of my voice. It's good for when you want to go to sleep, or good for your drive. But nothing I'm actually saying is ultra new or ultra novel. But I don't see anybody talking about Seller Fulfilled Prime. And it has been a game changer for a couple of my accounts. One client who lost it got it back and immediately saw a big bump in sales. And another client who never had it before, when I mentioned that their business model is an ideal fit, they applied, they got approved, and they saw a bump the last 2 weeks of the year. So that's something which is nice. I think the last thing that's sort of relevant as far as 2023 goes is the space in which it's sort of the space in which we discuss how additional sales channels continue to be more and more relevant. For a whole bunch of years, we've been saying that external traffic and diverse sales channels is important. We've been talking about Walmart. We've been talking about your own Shopify store. We've been talking about all different platforms. And although it is always important to sell in a whole bunch of places, realistically, for most sellers, it hasn't been an easy thing to capture your Amazon amount of sales in another place. If you're selling $1 million a year on Amazon and you go into Walmart, you'll sell a tenth of that, a 20th of that, very small amounts. Again, of course, there are people who do fantastic. I have stories about it, but most, it's sort of like a messy, smushy kind of thing. That's been the case also if you open your own Shopify store. That's been the case if you open your own Facebook shop. What has changed this year is there is now a platform maybe for the first time in which you can reliably get performance that looks like Amazon. And I've been seeing it and I've been hearing about it. And that is, of course, TikTok. TikTok is that platform which is the bane of my existence in some ways, because every time a friend of mine sends me a video, I open it up and I suddenly look at my watch and I realize it's 24 minutes later because I've been watching all kinds of crap and I wouldn't have opened up TikTok otherwise. But at the same time, when a video goes viral, and if you have enough people in your network of content creators creating videos about your product, when that product inevitably goes viral, you will sell a ton of product. And people I know are selling as much as they do on Amazon with much, much lower fees. They're able to ship the orders themselves. They are able to create connections to their Amazon inventory, so you'll ship those orders directly from Amazon. There is definitely opportunity there. It is more reliably a possibility to be selling as much as you do on Amazon on TikTok. Temu and Shein continue to grow. I have a doubt about what they're going to look like because I think that they're losing tons of money as they exist. I think they're being financed by China. I think that they aren't able to offer those products at those prices should they need to actually account for what it costs to run a business. And as they bleed longer and longer without hope of profitability, I'm curious about how things will change. Inevitably, prices will grow. Um, I sort of think one thing I was going to talk about, and I guess this is the lead into it, is one of the things that I haven't heard about haven't heard mentioned about 2024 is this is an election year. And not only is this an election year, this is an ultra polarizing election year. I'm not looking to get into the politics of it. Of course, I could have a whole other conversation about that. But it is, without getting into who you support or anything, the two sides that are running for election are very, very opposite. They are very, very opposite in terms of how they perceive business and how they want to promote business and how they want the US to interact with other countries and how they want the US to position itself in the world. They are very, very different. And depending on who wins, one of two things is going to happen. Either things are going to change a lot and become different, or if the incumbent wins, that will be an empowerment for the course of the last couple of years, and that will accelerate also. So, simplest example is the FTC investigations of Amazon. Um, right now, there is an FTC case against Amazon very simply because the person that was put into the FTC to lead the FTC after the current president was elected is a person who was anti-Amazon. They were anti-Amazon before they were ever elected to their position or wherever they appointed to their position. They had written papers on it, how they think Amazon is uncompetitive. And they basically had it as part of their position that they don't like Amazon. They made their case. I'm personally of the opinion that the case does not have merit. Again, it's not a judgment on political positions, but if you read that case, they basically say that Amazon is a monopoly, but it's only a monopoly within the online superstore marketplace. And within the online superstore marketplace, there are like two competitors. So because they're much bigger than the only competitor you compare them to, that's why they're a monopoly. Oh, Shopify sells as much as Amazon does across many sellers? No. Oh, there are many sellers making tons of profits without even using Amazon? No, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that Amazon's not a thing. Temu and Shein all come and start selling billions upon billions of dollars with the same kind of investments that Amazon did originally. No, that doesn't mean that Amazon's not a monopoly. They found ways to basically invalidate any argument you would have that there is a marketplace where competition exists. So I don't want to dive into this case. It's a case that annoys me. But the point is that this is a reflection of the stance of the current president. And if the current president changes, it's very likely all of this will get shut down one way or another. There will be a new FTC leader appointed. That FTC leader that they're appointing is going to very likely have different positions, and it's going to reflect in how Amazon is pursued. It's going to reflect in how Amazon is able to maneuver and operate. It's also going to reflect in how TikTok is allowed to maneuver and operate, because TikTok is very questionable in terms of their privacy policies, in terms of their relationship with the Chinese government. There's a lot there that is very polarizing. President changes, a lot of that stuff will change. It's all unknown. I don't know how to work in advance of that. However, the thing that I can say is change always happens. There was a different president before this one. There was different administration before this one. There have been different ways to sell over the decades I've been selling. The internet didn't exist when I started selling. I adopted. Amazon didn't exist when I first started selling online. When it came on, I adopted. Your responsibility is to adopt and adapt to the newest technologies. Your responsibility, if you are a business owner listening to this, is to adopt and adapt. I know many, many businesses who never really sold online. They had strong, successful businesses not selling at all to direct to consumers. They had their Walmart and their Kohl's and their Target accounts, and they would go to all the retailers, sell their products into retail. As it become clearer and clearer that online marketplaces were necessary to keep sales up and to grow, these businesses adapted. They went onto marketplaces like Macy's, which require you to ship every unit yourself. They built out processes to ship individual orders instead of their case packs, and they sell millions of dollars a year doing it. And you don't hear about it because it's not even something where a casual seller can get in on Macy's. You need to have a vendor relationship. You need to have products that Macy's is interested in displaying, and they don't just take any product you want to sell. And if you do have those channels, you can leverage them. You can do very well on them. So the larger point is business changes. Business is going to change a lot this year. And be aware, be ready. Don't entrench yourself too heavily in any position, because if you do and the marketplace changes, you may be stuck somehow. I don't know what stuck will look like. I don't know what too heavily entrenched means, but in general, try to be flexible. Keep your eyes open to new opportunities. Set aside some piece of your brain, some piece of your financial resources, some piece of your human resources. Set a piece of it aside for trying out things. Try out TikTok shops. Try out any marketplaces that open up. Try and open your own Shopify store. Even if I don't recommend going all in on a thing. Don't say, I see the future. The future is TikTok. Guys, we have to change everything to TikTok. I don't buy that. Have 15 little bets in 15 little places. See what works well. If something takes off, of course, lean into it. But also be able to say, I tried it, didn't work out. It didn't hurt me much. Let me try something else. Some of those bets are going to be powerful. Most of those bets are not going to go anywhere. And a couple of them, you're going to say, oh God, I wish I never even heard of this thing. It's fine. Welcome to life. Welcome to business. You need to take advantage of the things that work. You need to be open to the fact that your business will look different in 3 years than it does today. Your product mix will look different. Your way of doing business will look different. Your systems will look different. And if you are leveraged for that, if you are ready to change as the world around you changes, you'll be all right. Let's see. Do we have questions? I can't even tell. Oh gosh, I see some of the comments and I see some of the questions, and I don't know what to make of them. Mostly around the political angle that I tried not to even get into. Okay, I will leave that alone. I will tell you that going into 2024, I will try to do a better job of letting everybody know in advance when these things are happening, of letting people sign up, of publicizing it around, and of being open to more questions. And hopefully we'll create a lot of great content. Hopefully I will be entertaining and useful and valuable. And I hope it's a great year for everybody. See you all later.